Good evening, everybody, and welcome back for another episode of Awoken with Aulden on this Awoken Wednesday. Today is January 7th, 2026, the 7th day of the new calendar year. I am your host, Aulden S. Nance, and we have a big show tonight just detailing a couple major current events, most notably the acquisition inquiries by the Trump administration into either purchasing or using other methods or means to have Greenland join the United States, the world's largest island. That's a pretty big deal. Additionally, we will do a brief little discussion about the ICE raids in Minneapolis today and the last couple of days. Earlier today, a younger woman was shot and killed after, if you look at the video, it seems to, I think either both sides are going to say whatever, of course, right? But she was driving at a pace that probably freaked the agent out just enough, and he shot her in the face because of it. So we're going to be talking about that a little bit this evening. But first, before wanting to get into the main topics, want to express my condolences to Congressman Doug LaMaffa. Former Congressman Doug LaMaffa passed away yesterday morning, I believe. Represented California's, I think, first congressional district from 2013 until yesterday. And friends with a young man that out here in DC that worked for him in his House office. So wanting to express our condolences to the congressman, his family, and his staff. It's not all easy doing everything out here in DC all the time. So I want to pay some respects to the congressman. Okay, so if it's your first time joining the live stream or the channel, if first time you're watching this video, we would love if you would hit that subscribe button. Looking to unlock more minds each and every day. We're up to 150, starting to grow this mass awakening brick by brick and day by day, and we will continue doing that. Please also leave a like, leave a comment, let me know what you think of my commentary, the topics, what you want me to discuss next week. Programming up for next Awoken Wednesday, bringing on a guest, a friend of the show. I'm sure he'll do tremendous. We have a topic. We have selected it privately amongst ourselves, and we will reveal that to you guys at a later date in the next few calendar days. Okay, so thank you for that, and look forward to next week. So first, I'm going to talk about the ICE stuff. And I've mentioned this the last couple of times now. I did it on my prediction video. I've discussed it at other times, is that the admin has almost been not begging for something like this, but they've been egging the left to, they've been releasing these memes of the people being deported. You know, they're making the funny hype videos, the funny hype songs, whatever, like Dora the Explorer, Gotta Catch 'Em All, Pokemon Go, Catch 'Em All. And they've been really tempting the left and the counter protesters. We've also discussed them before, particularly in Chicago last fall, throwing bricks and eggs and other objects at ICE agents and federal enforcement. So this has been building, and it really snapped today for the first time that you had a younger woman killed don't know much about her except a woman and I believe 37 years old, and was killed driving her 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 minivan, and she kind of pulled up in the middle of the street, and ICE got out of their vehicle, there, and said, "Hey, I need you. You need to get out of the car. Quit blocking the street." And she accelerated, continued going, and that's when. So if you look at the video from like where I am, and let's say the van is kind of directly in front of me, there's the ICE agent that is trying to grab open the door is blocking the way of the officer that was hit, or that was the one that fired the shot, right? But there's been other angles and videos released that show that it was maybe not in 90-mile-per-hour against a brick wall kind of driving, but it was intent for an acceleration and to flee the situation. And it probably, and here's something else to keep in mind. The admin, they've been pushing this. You see it all the time everywhere. Apply for ICE today, $50,000 bonus if you sign on. We're looking for more patriots to join the team. So we don't really know all the details yet. We don't know the experience of this individual at all, at least last time I looked. So we'll have to keep looking at that. But not a fun situation in Minneapolis today, and it's looking like saw the governor come out, who actually suspended his re-election campaign a couple days ago. So a pretty tough week for the gov, saying may need to deploy the National Guard, Minnesota State National Guard. We'll see. And I also mentioned this on the prediction video, is that you have what's happening is that you have the state-backed law enforcement or militia type going against the orders of the federal. So you have this federal state contradiction, and they're just kind of getting closer and closer and closer together. So we're going to keep an eye on this. We'll check after we talk about Greenland. We'll go ahead and hop on everyone's favorite app, X, and check out what's going on with these potential protests in Minneapolis this evening. But besides that, you really look at it, the admin has had a pretty great start in terms of execution and messaging to start in the new calendar year, especially after the last couple months of last year. A lot of blackpilling, a lot of disappointment for sure. But just think, this since Saturday captured the leader, I don't even want to call him president, but Nicolas Maduro, Venezuela, got his wife too. Man, did you see I think she had a big old bandage on her head. Like, they seemed like she got beat up a lot worse than her hubby did. And we haven't really seen a whole lot of her, but we've seen all the memes of Nicholas. Hello, hi, happy new year, good night. So we're going to keep an eye on him as a person. But to continue the point, you have that work about as perfect as you can hope. And then you have ICE and immigration getting back in the media fold, which is what the admin needs, especially heading into a midterm year. This is the issue that brought the Republicans the popular vote in 2024, 53 senators, a +4, and the majority, keeping the House majority, and the President Trump reclaiming the White House for the Republicans. This issue has been the what the calling card is, and they need to play this issue more. They need to, it has to be their main thing. Because if anything else, maybe things aren't getting that more affordable. Maybe some other things aren't really improving. If you can show progress with the deportations and the immigration side of it, that's going to help a lot for the midterm, especially red meat for the base. Right, remember, so you're going to have to get these people to come out and vote in about 10 months from now. And who knows what the primaries are going to look like. We still have to go through the primaries. So they need to pick, if they had to pick one issue, they got to stick with immigration. And they need to make it even larger. I don't even know how many agents are in Minneapolis today, but triple it, for heaven's sakes, if you need to. Especially with the Somali daycare scandal that Nick Shirley exposed that caused Walz to not seek re-election. This is it. It's like a sports parlay. You hit a couple legs, keep playing it. Don't change teams or change games. Keep doing the same thing. Okay. And these people, they simply have to be removed. That's the biggest thing. These illegal immigrants. They have no right being here. Okay, so that's a little bit of the immigration side of things. Already reminded you to like and subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment for the live chat. I can see it. And actually got a monitor. So did a little upgrading with the studio. Just microphones on the different side. Had to do that to make the monitor fit into the system a little bit more. So it should be a little easier for me to pull up information in real time, and I'll be able to see myself on my old MacBook Air that is somehow running this entire program, and the monitor should help a lot more now. So without further ado, we're going to head into, actually, I'll talk a few moments about Greenland before we hop into the presentation. So what really sparked this is, remember after the inauguration last year, the Gulf of Mexico wanted to change that name, really talked about Canada being the 51st state. Since then has talked about Greenland more, and the president of Mexico. And I talked about this with my buddy Alex on the National Security Strategy episode. You should go check that out if you haven't already. The Trump corollary is the dominance in the Western Hemisphere, assisting the president of Argentina when his re-election campaign down there in Argentina, making sure the U.S.-backed fella remained in power. The president, in maybe a more not as serious point, has frequently discussed former President Bolsonaro in Brazil, trying to get him released or have his sentence reduced or something. Can't remember his exact deal. I know he's in trouble legally big time. Has threatened, it really started to kind of come out against the president of Colombia, saying, hey, buddy, look, capturing Maduro, making Venezuela seeking regime change in Caracas. Sheinbaum in Mexico saying you need to get the cartels under control now. If not that, and then go up north of Canada. Hey, Prime Minister Carney, you're going to be the 51st state now. And now even Greenland. And Greenland is the more I learned about it, it's a very strategic global implication, location, and lots of potential, I believe. It's a population size of half of Evansville, Indiana, if you've ever been there before. So not a lot of people reside on the world's largest island. So I'm going to pull up the presentation and we'll get into this guy here. Don't perfect. Alrighty, so Trump wants Greenland. Obviously, he's discussed whether through purchasing and a more accelerated and aggressive approach, rather, is not taking military intervention off of the table. So let's do a little history of Greenland. Who really resides there, and who has resided there for thousands and thousands of years? Well, the Inuit people, as you can see, the people on your screen, almost like kind of like ice climbers and Super Smash Bros. A little bit, have the puffy jackets. Well, they're well equipped to deal with the harsh cold and the winters. And how did they survive? Well, it's their diet, actually. They have a very specific diet. The Inuit, the Inuit diet, and it's a very high meat, high protein, high animal meat diet, and it preserves in your body in the extreme cold a lot better than Cheez-Its or other crap that we eat today. We need more maha, by the way. But yeah, you're eating fish, all sea life, really a good healthy protein diet to where you can grow strong, because you're going to have to move stuff around. Yeah, you're always traveling, you're moving around, you need a hunt, and their lifestyle survived for forever. It still does today because of this very simple strategy that they have. They live in loose sod huts where it's essentially underground living. That's where they would live long term in the winter. Sometimes they would use igloos to travel and track around the country, but that was really, they had more stable long-term housing, which enabled them to survive. So the Thule people in the Norse settlement. So you have these two groups come. The Thule are more or less Inuit people, as I mentioned before, but the Norse came from more European, where current day Denmark is, in the Scandinavian region. So you have these two different civilizations living on Greenland at the same time. And the Thule people had the same survival instincts as the Inuit people through whales, walrus, other marine and sea life that they would eat to stay alive, and it could make better shelters and stay a little more stable, if that makes sense. But the Norse settlers were the more Viking-like, and were not on the same page of the lifestyle as the Thule people. And why did this matter? Well, eventually the population could not sustain anymore. There was one harsh winter in particular, and we don't really know much about them from that point on. And they refused to adapt. So, let me go next slide. Eric the Red. Researching this dude, and just an absolute badass. Could not ignore him, and deserving of his own slide, absolutely. And here, one sec. Just want to pull up something about him on the monitor. But regardless, he was exiled from Iceland and I believe Norway, exiled from two different countries for killing a bunch of people. And so they were like, okay, you can't live in a civilized society, you need to get going. And he was an explorer. He took a gamble and led about a little over 24 ships to Greenland full of Norse people. And they built the civilization there for the period of time. And but again, though, they didn't adapt. I believe he fell off a horse one day, and it basically physically decapitated him, made him incompatible of physical movement, much physical movement. And here's what I'm looking for. So if you've watched SpongeBob, the little episode about Leif Erikson, Eric the Red fathered Leif Erikson. There's Leif Erikson Day. I believe it's October 9th of each calendar year, I believe. And supposedly was the first Norse fella to step on North America. That's the claim. That's what is discussed. So Eric the Red, absolute badass, had to mention him. May he rest in peace. Okay, so now let's skip up a little bit and let's go to where we're getting a little closer to current Greenland history. And so for a couple hundred years, you just have this back and forth of European settlers, colonies, move in Greenland, move out, whatever. The Inuit people remain in the Greenland proper, however, and they keep living there without much contact. Really no conflict that we know of, widespread at least. But now, here's what happened. So Denmark and Norway, they reassert the control after all the Norse are permanently gone. And we're really looking at the Danish post, because Inuit society and these people, it's a whole different game. Remember, almost like the I can't remember the name of the island, but it's the island where I believe it's these people that have never had human contact before, basically. So you're having, even though the Inuits have had human contact before, of course, it's been a different ball game in the sense that really no major conflicts. They've been able to keep the same lifestyle of whale hunting, eating this diet of high animal protein. But now the European rule is going to start exerting a little bit of force here. So the next big point we're jumping to is, a lot of people think the President Trump's comments about Greenland are something brand new, that he just woke up one morning and pulled it out of his bottom that he wanted Greenland. Was the first president to ever think that and to say that. That's what some people are thinking. Well, that's not right. And during the Second World War, Denmark fell to the Nazis, and Greenland was left alone. And the United States said, okay, we will protect Greenland. Because Denmark, they were unable to. They were defeated at the leadership position and conquered for a period of time. And so this really shows that Greenland can become strategic on the military front, while because you have the Bidufek, at the time the Bidufek military base built in Denmark. So again, about the president's comments wanting to buy Greenland, Harry Truman, the president at the time, was hoping for $100 million worth of gold to purchase Greenland outright and upfront. Denmark, when the offer was made to them, they declined, as we know. And there's really no big, the value of it was, yeah, we don't really care who controls it. We really understand that this is a very valuable piece of land strategically in the Arctic Circle, and particularly with the Soviet Union as well. We talked about the Cold War Soviet Union before with Somalia. So in 51, you have the Greenland Defense Agreement. And Denmark and the United States said, okay, you've already proven and shown to us that you can defend it before, so maybe you can have a long-term stake in the future of the territory. And that's when this military base, the Boudefek, was announced and built. And however, Denmark, they would still retain all the sovereignty over the territory, but that did also allow us to become their on a permanent basis. So something that many people don't know, and something that I was surprised to learn, is a Project Iceworm. And what was it? A project from 1959 to 1966, I believe. And it was a secret Cold War military project that we were like, okay, maybe we can build bombing capabilities, missile launch points in Greenland. And yeah, they wanted nuclear missiles under the ice. However, through science and the scientific deal, it was seemed that the caps and the ice was moving too quickly. It would be unsustainable long term, and that the tunnels, anything that were to be built, would be crushed in 2 years. It would totally collapse. Everything would go everywhere. And yeah, the instability of the ice really made the program fold. However, they wanted to build the camp center, which is city under the ice. Never really happened. In I believe the 90s is when the documents were unsealed, and just one of those things. Who knows what kind of Project Iceworm related thing is happening right now in our country or somewhere else in the world that we're involved with. So, and another thing about, a lot of people are saying, well, we're talking to Greenland and they're with NATO. So if we're going to maybe take land or want more land, that's going to be a problem. Well, Canada is in NATO, and there was a dispute over Hans Island for around 50 years. This island legit split down the middle, and a decades-long dispute between Canada and Denmark over who would have sovereignty and control of the island really was not a foaming at the mouth dispute or argument. It was more of a symbolic kind of deal. Shortly after the Ukraine-Russia war broke out in 22, this peaceful agreement was agreed upon, reached, really as a middle finger to the Russians to say, hey, you can do land disputes, settle land disputes and borders peacefully. And now it's split about 50-50. So that's just another counter to when people are saying, well, they're NATO. Yeah, they are NATO, but they've had other disputes with NATO members before over territory. So the 1953 Constitution and integration era, pretty big big turning point in modern Greenland history. So the Constitution was revised in Denmark that same year, and now they're officially a colony. A part of Denmark, they're officially their own colony within it. The they are granted Danish citizenship, which is pretty key and important. But however, the all of the authority and politics and major decision making is still made in Copenhagen, Denmark. Okay, so they get a couple inches closer to their desired goal of independence. So you have this decade, 60s through the most of the 70s for the most part, forced modernization and centralization. Why is that a problem? Well, the people that have lived there have had the same lifestyle forever: hunting, eating, living in these huts, not huts, these sod huts. And now all of a sudden, Denmark is trying to force Western culture and other societal customs onto the Inuit people. But however, they kind of go along with it because schools, hospital, for the first time, there is some of this stuff that has never been around before. So it's a compromise a little bit. The language was emphasized, learning the language, and however, it did collapse the livelihoods and customs and cultures that I mentioned from the Inuit people that, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years ago. So this is probably the next biggest step in terms of Greenland independence. You have they now have their own parliament and government for the first time. They are a little more free from Denmark. Again, they're still only in the mid 50,000 people. So it's not a large community in particular. And they were able to get full control over all the education, health, and local affairs. So Denmark, they no longer micromanaged the Greenlanders anymore. However, in terms of main defense and foreign policy decisions, they were still a part of the kingdom. And something else, we'll get to this in a moment, but that block grant funding, keep that in mind. Okay, we're going to talk about that a lot here. Okay, so here's the last big part of independence for the Greenlanders. They got their self-rule by a referendum in 2009, and now they have control over all the natural resources. So going back a second, the Homestead Act there was kind of a risk when Denmark joined the EU, and that trading part within the EU is because, so much of the Greenland economy is fishing. So if there's regulations on fishing, that really neuters, cripples, damages the economy, the local economy. The economy that exists is in severe jeopardy and danger with that. So they realized they had to kind of start becoming a little more independent. And their own language now is their law of the land, and it leads to the way, this is almost like the beginning of the end of them being controlled by Denmark, is that they have the pathway to achieve that now set up. So how do we still exist in Greenland? Well, the Thule base, the Baydufek base, and that has remained ever since the Second World War. So that's still there current day today on Awoken Wednesday, January 7th, 2026. That's still there today. It's big for missile warning. You have the Cold War, Soviet Union, that whole deal. The and the Even though that we don't have sovereignty over the territory, it's still a kind of big brother, maybe not big brother reminder, but that we're there. We're still on the ground there. We have that base that gives us a strategic location. So now that block grant I told you about a couple slides ago, here's where it comes into play a lot. It is a welfare state, and about half of the money is provided by Denmark right now. About anywhere from $600 million to $700 million annually, Denmark gives them in welfare, essentially, because the local economy, the fishing cannot net that kind of profit, and tourism doesn't do enough. That's really about it. It's a big slab of ice, for heaven's sakes. So, but they do have free healthcare, free education through Greenland University. The public sector through these jobs dominates the employment. And so the big thing why they can't really ever become fully independent is because they would need this money to come from somewhere. And right now they're shackled to the kingdom because of the lack of being able to pull another $600 to $700 million out of your rear end annually. So a kind of a little supporting, maybe a little counter is, okay, well, if the United States, if we're not going to look into Greenland, what about the main adversary, the main geopolitical adversary in the 21st century? China, investing in rare earth minerals and resources. So they have a strong desire, particularly around the mid 2010s, the late 2000s, like 07, 08, 09, into the mid 2010s, I believe until 2018, they really sought after, they wanted to help build airports. They wanted to help build introduce other technology to Greenland. The Chinese did. And it would give them strategic positioning in the Arctic region. They argue that they are a part of it, and even I believe the Silk Road Initiative, or the Polar Silk Road Initiative, or something like that, is what they argue for. Okay, that's why we need to be in Greenland. So the Chinese are also interested in the territory as well. However, any real major attempts were sidelined and stuffed by Denmark and other allies of the kingdom. So let's kind of be a little honest. There could be some risks, honestly, with pursuing the territory. Denmark is in NATO, which we are in. So obviously we're kind of the sugar daddy for the entire alliance. But the status is protected by treaties, and really let's say there is military intervention. Well, if you have military intervention, then that kind of puts a poison pill out for NATO. Who's going to fight the United States over Greenland? Are the Western European nations going to take a look off Russia to go and defend Greenland? Probably not. Are the other major powers like France, guys like the United Kingdom, going to want to do that? Probably not. So the president's probably thinking, well, life is all about leverage, and we have the leverage. However, I don't see even a Maduro kind of operation with this. I think it's more rhetoric, and we're trying to improve our standing especially with the Trump corollary. So the interview a couple days ago with White House, I believe Deputy Chief of Staff or Senior Advisor or something like that, Stephen Miller, former president of America First Legal, and CNN anchor of, I think it's, I can't remember what his show is, the Lead, maybe. I think it's The Lead. And they were discussing the other day about Venezuela and Greenland. And it really, for the first time, you kind of saw Miller refused to say military intervention was off of the table. So that's a pretty big deal right there. And really was showing the strategic logic, though, behind getting closer with Greenland. And but it did shift the narrative from what some people saw as a meme to really solid debate and actual potential policy, geopolitical discussions. And the two men, I believe it was like a 10-15 minute interview. It wasn't a whole lot of shouting. It was more cordial. And something you've kind of noticed this time with the Trump admin, there's the media. The way they've approached the media is not the same way they did in Trump 1.0 for sure. So a little bit about Denmark, right? The country that has sovereignty over Greenland at the moment, and they do have global leverage. They're in NATO, as I mentioned earlier, big stakeholder in the Arctic region politics. It's a huge bridge between Europe and the Arctic, and the king, I believe it's King Frederick X, is the king of Denmark at the moment. So that's just a little tidbit about Denmark. Now about Greenland, the leadership and governance within Greenland itself. You have the parliament that I mentioned, coalition-based politics for the most part. Major welfare state, and they're trying to decide the future for them. You hear sometimes like CNN or whatever news channel you're watching, and they'll be like, "Oh, what do they feel about maybe joining America?" And they're always like, "Well, they don't want to become in America." So we're just going to have to see what the deal is with their pro-independence spectrum. So a quick little recap of the entire Greenland discussion is why does it keep coming up? Well, we've mentioned the significance and the geography. Can serve as a proxy and a military housing area in the Arctic. And you have that big old Arctic circle. You got Alaska, Russia, a couple of Greenland, etc. However, as we did mention, it's a welfare state. They are going to, if they want to become fully independent, they're going to have to find a way, whether it's through selling all of the rare earth minerals or something like that. They will have to find a way to do that. Or maybe there's a compromise that is reached with some other nation. But right now, at the moment, it doesn't seem like anything is really happening with it. And that is the presentation. Okay, so thank you for paying attention. And good question by at RDD42. The question is, here, I'm going to go back to full screen. Okay, tremendous. And the question is, why is Trump so infatuated with imperialism? Well, I think at the current moment is the revitalization of the Monroe Doctrine, the Trump corollary, the significance of really wanting to, because something I think about a lot is that if you're looking at the almost like an NCAA tournament, if you played the tournament out and the two best teams usually don't make the finals, right? But let's just pretend the two best countries would. If it was like an NCAA tournament for all of the countries, the national championship game would be the United States and China. They're simply the two top dogs right now worldwide. And getting Venezuela, having that flip is actually pretty significant right now. I'm responding to at RDD42 at the moment. But just think about, and something else that we're going to have to really pay attention to a lot more now. I mentioned it last week, I believe, but Taiwan. We'll have to do an episode on Taiwan and the history of Taiwan here coming up, because that's going to be maybe China's Venezuela opportunity, or their Greenland, or their Argentina, whatever it is. If the United States is racking up regimes to get in line, or flat out kidnapping the leader or perceived leader, even though he's illegitimate, still kind of the leader, more or less, of the country and the regime, is that China might start thinking, oh, we need to do this too. So we're going to be talking about Taiwan here soon. That kind of seemed to maybe not be inevitable, however, something that we're going to have to look at for sure. So good question by at RWD42. See if anyone has texted a question in. Okay, wonderful. So, yeah, if anyone else has any other questions, please leave a comment in the live chat. Just again, if you're now joining us, we briefly discussed the ICE situation in Minneapolis today, and the more aggressive and active talks of pursuing Greenland for the United States. So I'd say the biggest counter argument to that is, how is there going to be an appetite for, let's say Denmark just says, okay, you can just take them, but we're not paying the lump sum every year. We're not paying the grant anymore. What kind of appetite would there be from the American people for a $600 to $700 million additional tax for another country or another territory come very soon, potentially? Maybe there's another way that they can work it out. Maybe there's some, if you give up so many rare earth minerals per year, well, that counts. You know what I mean? Just something like that. Because there are a lot on Greenland. Maybe help with military construction. I don't know exactly. But there is going to be there's going to be something going on there for sure. Okay, so we are going to share the screen. Let's check out Twitter on the new monitor I have now, so I don't have to be going back and forth on the poor MacBook Air. I can show you the here. Let's go to here. Let's share the screen on my new monitor. Really excited about this. Excuse me one moment. Okay, come on. Great. Okay. Here, I'm going to go back to. So, yeah, I mentioned on the, just for a brief moment, Leif Erikson, the SpongeBob episode. Here, let's go to him. Yeah, I'm sure you probably remember this episode when you were a child, if you ever watched SpongeBob at all. So the really cool thing that I'm trying to do with this channel, and really for you, is that we want to be learning every week, learning new stuff, making connections. Remember, the stuff you've done before in the past doesn't mean you can't connect it to something you learn in the future. And in particular, the Leif Erikson SpongeBob episode. Because his father, Eric the Red, birthed Leif Erikson. Or didn't birth him, was the father. The mother did the birthing, or born. But we are going to now go with Twitter and check out what's going on here, because there is a lot to see. Okay. Here, let's just type ice. Okay, here we go. Okay, so let's read the president's statement from earlier today. I have just viewed the clip of the event which took place in Minneapolis, Minnesota. It is a horrible thing to watch. The woman screaming was obviously a professional agitator, and the woman driving the car was very disorderly, obstructing, and resisting, who then violently, woefully, and viciously ran over the ICE officer, who seems to have shot her in self-defense. Based on the attached clip, it is hard to believe he is alive, but is now recovering in the hospital. This situation is being studied in its entirety, but the reason these incidents are happening is because the radical left is threatening, assaulting, and targeting our law enforcement officers and ICE agents on a daily basis. They are just trying to do the job of making America safe. We need to stand by and protect our law enforcement officers from this radical left movement of violence and hate. President Donald J. Trump. Okay, so that statement is really what I was talking about at the beginning of the show, is that for months now, there's been this buildup, and what's scary is you have to hope, but what's going to happen tomorrow with these protests? You've seen the screaming, even in the next Shirley video of the Somali daycare. There's always somebody that is some person screaming, "Don't open up, it's ICE." And they weren't even ICE. So the left has gotten to the point where they are obsessed with this protecting these illegal immigrants, more than if they fought as hard for citizens as they did illegals, they might not be in the political position they're in right now. Lucifer, huh? Yeah, so you have Lucifer calling people Nazis. Great. So here, actually, let's try to find the victim. Let's find this woman, because I don't know much about her, and it's not even though in political times it's maybe somebody lost, maybe some kids don't have a mother anymore, or um, a husband doesn't have a wife or something like that. So it's not, this isn't funny per se at all. Let's see if we got anything here.
During an ICE operation in Minneapolis. An ICE vehicle was stuck in the snow, and while trying to push it out, activists began harassing and blocking their path, boxing them onto the street. A woman parked her car, preventing the ICE agents from leaving, and was ordered to exit the vehicle multiple
this is 2
times.
minutes. We're not doing
Officers,
a minute clip. Yeah, I don't want to. I just want to see if there's anything about the. Oh yeah, here's something. Breaking: the planned riots around Minnesota have been canceled after today's ICE shooting victim was revealed to be a white woman. Renee Good, pronouns she, her, a poet. The bio says poet and writer and wife and mom and shitty guitar strummer from Colorado, experienced in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Okay. Renee Nicole Good. So at least in that Instagram bio, it sounded like a mother, which is not. It's not a fun. Yeah, it's still ultimately a sad thing. Anytime that people are killed in events like this, it's not a laughing matter, I'd argue. However, there is a real consequence, not wanting to say she deserved it or anyone deserves violence at all. But they're going to have to be a little more careful. Maybe next time they'll think about throwing a brick at the ICE car, or maybe they'll call their neighbor on the phone instead of going out in the front yard to scream ICE is here this time. Maybe there's a little fear kind of into the protesters. Let's see if there's a. So let's see if there's any planned demonstrations for this evening. So you had the mayor and the governor have their little press conferences. Just going really slow. So they're saying hundreds, maybe hundreds. See what else is going on. And here I want to show you the mayor of what the mayor said. That's probably the last big thing that we need to look at while we're still together this evening. You see, he had some comments.
get the fuck out of Minneapolis. Your stated reason for being in this city is to create some kind of safety, and you are doing exactly the opposite. Somebody is dead. That's on you. This was an agent recklessly using power that resulted in somebody dying. To the family, I'm so deeply sorry. We're going to be working towards justice as
So you see the contrast between what he's saying and the president saying. Two totally different stories of what you just heard. And that's politics for you. And that's really what it is. This seemed to be, in the last couple of weeks, especially, it seemed to be the day that the most general discussion about politics kind of popped. So I'm in a group chat with a lot of my buddies from college, and I can use it as a measuring stick on not maybe every on people that aren't involved in politics 24/7 like myself. And the more that they talk in it, I can kind of tell the more, okay, this is a bigger story and a bigger deal. Like, for example, another big one was the Charlie Kirk assassination. That was another big topic day. But like day to day, usually it's kind of quiet. But today was one of the bigger days in a long time in there. So this has got a lot of people riled up, obviously, for sure. And we're going to have to keep watching this over the next couple of days. Who knows? At least those protests that we saw, if there's only hundreds going, there's probably not going to be wide scale rioting, looting that we saw 6 years ago, which, if you can believe, 2020 was 6 years ago already. Of course. So let's get Twitter off the screen and let's do kind of the closing of this. And let's see if anyone's texted in again. Oh, here, let me get off this. Okay, wonderful. All right, great. So at Beth B for J8G, SpongeBob. Yeah, so you can see that there's frequent examples of pop culture that I'll try and mention them during the show. And we're really looking at, trying to make this as fun and so you can learn as much as possible, really. That's the main idea behind this. So just quick programming note, next Wednesday, we'll have a guest star. Might do show next Tuesday. We'll see. And anything else? I think we're okay. Maybe. If you haven't checked out the emergency Maduro episode from Saturday, check that out. That's live breaking pinpoint coverage and analysis of the operation that kidnapped Nicolas Maduro. So I think we got that out of the way. If it's your first time on the channel, please leave the video a like, subscribe to the channel, share this video with your friends that maybe they have questions about Greenland. I hope I was able to give a long, detailed history of Greenland and really show to you that right now it's not the first time that we've tried to pursue the planet Earth's largest island. Really isn't. Tried purchasing it 70, 80 years ago, and it's always kind of been there. So I think the president just bringing it back up to his attention is just his strategic move. Okay, so I think we're going to end things there. And thank you for watching tonight. And you have been awoken with Aulden. Good night, everybody. Much love. See you at least next Wednesday, if not next Tuesday. Much love and stay safe out there. Be careful.